Alright, it's time to talk about another lame Blumhouse horror film. Yay! My neighbor's dog always wants to start barking as soon as I have a window to film, so if you hear barking in the background, sorry about that. Hello everyone, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror, and today we are talking about, of course, Imaginary. This is a film that I have not been looking forward to. I've said in previous videos I am not the biggest Blumhouse fan, and they did not start off the year well either with Night Swim, which was just very bland. And from the trailers, I was not expecting much from Imaginary. And I've seen online some people have been saying that they think Imaginary is actually better than Night Swim. For me, they're pretty much on par with each other. I don't think Imaginary is really that much better. If anything, in some respects, it might be kind of worse. This film pretty much lived up to my expectations. It was pretty much on par with what I thought it was going to be. And that is a story which again is boring, trite, and just doesn't make any sense. If you're someone that was intrigued by the trailers, I would suggest waiting for this film to come on streaming. Knowing the way these streamers work, I'm sure this film will be available at probably sometime within the next 48 hours, or at least by next week. So I would say save your money, don't go to the theater and see this. Even by Blumhouse standards, I felt like this was really just poor execution. If you've seen the trailers, you know that this is essentially a story about a little girl who has this imaginary friend, Chauncey the bear. She also has a stepmom. You learn that Chauncey is actually somehow connected to the girl's stepmother, and they very much hint that Chauncey is actually the imaginary friend of the stepmom when she was a kid. And from the very beginning, you learn that pretty much every member of this family has some sort of trauma going on. And yes, the way that we know that is through these very stilted conversations that we have with the characters. You know the deal. It's very much like, oh, I'm traumatized because my dad left me as a kid and my mom died of cancer and I was grieving. That's Jessica, the stepmom. Or it's the stepdaughters that are like,
oh, our real mom went crazy and is in a mental institution and we're sad about it and we're angry that you're here and you're our stepmom.
It's just all of this dialogue dumping and letting you know what the characters' problems are, rather than actually creating genuine scenes with all of these people and showing us through their behavior how they're feeling. And then you just have these random scenes throughout that make no sense. For example, the mom, the girl's real mom, who is now divorced from the dad and is in a mental hospital for some unknown reason. They don't actually explain what happened to her. But there's one random scene where she somehow is able to break out of the mental institution that she's in and goes to the new house that they all just moved into, and is somehow just like there, and then starts attacking Jessica, who again is essentially taking the role of the new mom. And then the police come, they take the mom and bring her back to the mental institution, and then we never see her or hear from her again. And it's like, why was any of that necessary? Again, how did the mom even break out of the mental institution? What is she in there for? Like, she's literally there for just that one scene, really to just create a jump scare, and that's all. Writers at Blumhouse, in what universe, what planet are you all living on where you think a scene like that is actual good storytelling? So it's a lot of that. That's what this movie is. And again, it's pretty on par for what we usually get with Blumhouse movies. And frankly, is another reason why we should not be wasting money, myself included, going to the theater and wasting our time on this garbage. It's garbage. And the thing is that I'm pretty sure they know that's bad storytelling. Like Blumhouse, I've said this before, Blumhouse, when they want to, they can create a decent horror film. But films like this, films like Night Swim, there's really only one intention behind these movies, and we all know what that is. And they're not even films where it's like, it's so bad that it's hilarious or fun, because they're too polished. Like, they look too Hollywood. Like, I think one of the reasons why we can find old old B movies so charming is because even though they're bad, you can at least tell that there was an intention behind the camera. There was an intention with the filmmakers. They were trying to make something good. You definitely have the B movies that were just being made for a cash grab like what Blumhouse does, and I don't personally find those films enjoyable either. But yeah, there's just nothing here to grab onto. It's not so bad that it's good. It's just annoying and boring. I will say one thing that I actually think Night Swim did better than Imaginary is that Night Swim at least brought up some interesting ideas or concepts. You had the whole plot with like the dad who had medical issues, and then the pool was kind of this magic healing entity. But the more that he used it and the more that he used the pool to heal himself, the more that the evil was able to spread throughout the entire family. It was setting up an interesting conflict. It didn't do anything with that conflict, but it was at least interesting in its premise. Whereas with Imaginary, like, I didn't get any of that. I don't really know what the film was trying to go for. I'm recording this right after getting out of the theater, and on my way home, like, I was trying to think, like, okay, how would I make this movie better? And I'm struggling to come up with ideas because I just don't know, like, what this film was trying to say. And to be honest, I don't think it was really trying to say anything. I think it was just like, hey, here's a cool concept, let's run with it. I mean, there is the connection between the young daughter and Jessica and the fact that they are sharing this imaginary friend. And they do kind of give you tidbits here and there that the imaginary friend is really a projection of whatever anxieties or insecurities or inner turmoil that Jessica was dealing with as a child. Again, we don't really know what that is. It seems like she was dealing with grief at some point, but we never really see her in a state of grieving. There's one point in the third act where, again, through exposition, she lets us, the audience, know that her mom died of cancer when she was a kid. But that's it. Like, that's like as much as that plot point goes. So I don't know what her struggle was as a teen that caused her to project onto Chauncey, or how her struggle relates to the little girl. I don't know what the little girl's deal is either. Like, there's some comments around her learning to rely on herself and not needing to be codependent on other people. But again, I was like, is that what your problem was throughout this whole movie? Because the movie didn't show me that. But anyway, they're setting up that these two characters are sharing this imaginary friend, and they're both projecting their inner anxieties onto this entity. And so you could have done something around that, where in order to defeat this monster, Jessica needs to essentially deal with her grief or deal with whatever it is psychologically that is causing her so much turmoil. And then through her learning to deal with her stuff, then she can help the little girl, right? So it's like, at least you're getting some sort of character development. Whereas in the actual film, all the characters pretty much stay the same. I saw a bit of an interview with the director of this film, and once I looked up who the director was and saw what his previous work is, I was like, yeah, this is now making a lot more sense. But anyway, in this interview, he talked about how he wanted to make this film essentially like Poltergeist. Like, Poltergeist was a big inspiration for him. And after seeing this movie, I was like, have you ever seen Poltergeist? You can tell, like, throughout the film, especially when they get into the third act, there's some very clear references to that film. At least with Poltergeist, like, you have the whole unit with the family, you learn about them as characters, you care about them. The film is taking you on a journey with all of these people. And here in Imaginary, they're not really a family. Yes, you have Jessica, who's the stepmom, and she's trying to be motherly to the two daughters. I will say her and the little girl do have a pretty good relationship. A few of their scenes I thought actually worked well. The actress who plays Jessica, DeWanda Wise, I believe her name is, I actually thought she was great. She's beautiful, she has great screen presence. Unfortunately, this film gave her absolutely nothing to work with, but I do hope that we see her in other films in the future, better films. And then you have, like, the older daughter, and when I first saw the older daughter, I was like, is that the same teen girl from Night Swim? It's not, but I feel like all these Blumhouse writers just write these teenage girls in the exact same way. They're always snotty, they always have an attitude, they always have an annoying boyfriend that always shows up, and that character is only used as a means to get the monster to come out and attack someone. And then you have the dad character, who's this like Australian or British musician, I think. He conveniently has to go out on tour like within the first act of this movie, and then he's pretty much gone for the whole thing, so we don't even get to know him or his relationship with his daughters or his relationship with his new wife. So there's not a genuine family unit there like what we have with Poltergeist. Also, Poltergeist, for being a PG film, is genuinely scary. So much eerie imagery and genuine suspense that is built. I mean, my god, that whole scene with the clown. I mean, how many childhoods has that clown haunted throughout the years? You don't get any genuine scares in this film. All of the scares that they create is just relying on, again, cheap jump scares. Also, Poltergeist 2, when you think of that film, like, that film is very much a commentary on suburbia, right? Middle class living, Reaganomics, just the insane consumerism that was happening at this time, right? If you really look at that movie and look at the house that the family's in, like, it's just full of stuff. Like, even if you're not noticing these things on a conscious level, they are there. The subtext of Poltergeist is very much about the anxieties of living in Ronald Reagan's America, and that's what Tobe Hooper was a master at. Like, he was able to take whatever the societal, cultural anxieties of the day were and seamlessly incorporate them into these very horrific and terrifying narratives. I feel like a horror film on just out of control capitalism would be very appropriate for today's time. Does Imaginary give us that? No. But to be fair, it's not trying to, but that also, again, connects back to what I was talking about earlier, where I don't know what this film is trying to say. It doesn't have a message, it doesn't have a theme. And I know I always harp on this in my videos and my reviews of these films, but it's because it's part of good storytelling. Like, we tell stories because we want to, again, either learn a lesson or try to work through something that is going on in society, make a commentary about something. And good horror films know how to do that. They know how to incorporate these larger themes into these very fantastical and horrific and, yes, imaginary worlds. I'm not gonna get into spoilers of this review, and to be perfectly frank, I'm kind of done talking about it. Like, I don't know what else to say about this movie, but I will say that most of the third act does take place in what is supposed to be the imaginary world. And it also features some of the goofiest stuff in the movie. I don't know, there's a lot of dumb stuff that happens in this movie, but particularly in the third act. I was reading online, someone was suggesting that perhaps this film is meant to be Blumhouse exploring imaginary worlds or exploring dream worlds because they are interested in doing a Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and that the imaginary world in this film could serve as an example of what they might want to do with an Elm Street movie. And I'm just like, dear God, please no. I don't know what's more scary to me, the fact that Blumhouse wants to do a remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, or that there's people out there that genuinely think they would do a good job with that property. Did you all not see the last two Halloween movies? Did you all not see The Exorcist? This is not a company that makes horror films because they genuinely love the property. They make horror films that they know are going to be quick cash grabs for them because that's all they care about. Blumhouse as a production company very much represents the worst of capitalism that a genuinely good film like Poltergeist or They Live would be giving a commentary on. I don't know, I'm just tired of them. I'm sure they have some other horror films coming out later this year, but I am just glad that Imaginary is done. I saw it. I don't have to think about it anymore, and I don't have to see the trailers for it anymore when I go to movies. Speaking of trailers, they played the new trailer for The Strangers Chapter 1. I gotta tell you all, I was not impressed by that either. Like, is the new Strangers movie supposed to be a remake of the first film, or is it a continuation? Because from the trailer it seemed like it was trying to be a remake. I've talked in previous videos how I think The Strangers is genuinely a terrifying film, for me at least. When I saw it the first time, it scared the crap out of me. And seeing this trailer, one, it felt like they were playing like the whole movie like they do with previews. They just do a condensed version of the whole film in the trailer. Yeah, I don't know, it just didn't feel scary to me. It felt much less subtle than the original film. So it seems like it's gonna be a reboot, but then in the trailer was also this like title card. It said something really stupid that was like, witness how the strangers become the strangers. I started laughing when I saw that. There was nothing scary about that trailer. So that's all I really have to say about Imaginary. There were a few other people in the theater with me. One person got up and left halfway through. Another person started playing a game on their phone and not even watching the film. So I think that tells you kind of what people thought of the movie. Did you see Imaginary? If so, what did you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.